Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Dana and Rachel. We are two book coaches and editors, and most of all, we are besties. We are discussing books, but not as readers. We're discussing them as writers to draw inspiration from great books, and along the way, we have lots of laughs. And today, we're going to be talking about the plot of Sin and Chocolate by K.F. Breene. But before we get into all of that, Rachel, what you got going on over there?
Yes, let me just talk about. I'm honestly, I feel again. It feels like we haven't done this in 100 million years, and so I knew it was coming. I knew you were about to be like, Rachel, what's going on? Like you lobbed me a softball, and I was like, shh, and I just was like, I don't remember what to do with this. So right now, one of the things that, so on my, occasionally I'll drop a little Twitch update on what's happening on the stream as I'm going through all these storytelling games. So we are wrapping up one of my favorite games of all time, Horizon Zero Dawn. This game, I'm actually surprised. It's a pretty huge AAA game, but not a lot of people have played it. So and it's what seems to happen is that like the Horizon games tend to come out when some other slightly bigger game comes out, so it kind of gets like lost in the like hype of the other bigger games. But this game is one of my favorite games of all time because it is like the most incredible world building. They've wrapped up a mystery inside of the world building, so as you're playing the game, you're like unraveling the truth of the world that you're living in and the truths about the protagonist, and it's just so, and then visually it's absolutely stunning. So this is one of my favorite game franchises of all time, and since I'd played it before, I thought it'd be really fun if I did it on ultra hard, which is the hardest difficulty setting that you can play the game on. And I don't know, I honestly don't know what I was thinking, but actually, like, you know, I've nearly finished it. Like I've almost beaten it, even though like my viewers, they have like certain channel point redeems that they can use to make the game harder for me, where I have to like, you know, defeat enemies in a certain way or use a certain strategy. And so we're wrapping that one up. And the real news is that we're moving on to a game called Expedition 33. It's a brand new game that came out. One of my viewers very, very generously bought it for me so I could play it for stream. And this game has made a huge splash. It's been made by a smaller development team, has a beautiful score. The character development, apparently, like the characters are just amazing. And the story is heartbreaking. I've been told I will cry many times throughout this game, and it's really I'm not excited to cry on stream, you know, just be there like boo-hooing and like, oh no, this is just feeling my feelings while I'm playing. But it's really exciting to see. There's a lot of stuff going on in the games industry where studios are starting to cut great projects, and people are feeling a little bit jaded by, you know, what video games are and what they're becoming because of sort of the way that investing changes the arts sometimes, and the way that, you know, outside investors and money, again, outside money and that kind of thing can alter how we approach an artistic form. But what's happening is you're seeing these smaller studios springing up who are bringing back, you know, beautiful game design and amazing storytelling, and we're seeing that kind of cropping up as almost this contrast to what's happening in the bigger studios. So I'm really, really excited to get into it and to play it and experience it for the first time with all my viewers. So that's our next kind of storytelling game that we're moving toward in the coming months. It'll probably take me, I don't know, a couple months to beat it. So I'm really excited about it. So that's what we're doing over here at Story Cypher, at least on the Story Cypher Twitch stream. What about you, Dana? What you got going on over there?
Well, I wanted to tell you, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, like, in general, like, how do you pick your games, and how long does it normally take you on average to complete a game?
So I take a lot of viewer recommendations, and I prioritize them based on, number one, purely like vibes, like what am I in the mood to play? I try to make sure I get a little bit of variety in. So if I do something really big and open world, I try to aim for like a smaller, tighter game after that to kind of just keep a little bit of variety in there, and to experience storytelling inside of different lengths of games, right? So I'll play an 8-hour game, and then we'll play, like a 40-hour game or something like that. So I'll usually pick based on like storytelling and kind of what's interesting to me, as well as mixing up genre and length. How long it usually takes me, I am not very good at video games, which is why it's a little bit hilarious that I was like, I'm gonna do this on ultra hard. Like, this is not a skill really that I possess, but here we are. Horizon has taken me, let's see, probably, I don't know, I'll probably have spent 60 hours on Horizon. So a lot of, I only stream twice a week for about 3.5 to 4 hours, which is a long time to stream. But when you're playing a 60-hour game, it takes you then, that many streams to kind of get through it. But a shorter game, for like an, I don't know, 10 to 15 hour game, you might look at like, it only takes me 1 month to beat it, which is why I like to get that variety in there. So we get some really long games that we spend a lot of time with, and then some shorter games that we're turning around a little bit faster. After we finish Expedition 33, we'll probably move into another horror game now that I've had a little break after Soma, which just completely undid me as a person. So exciting times ahead.
Oh, that's so cool. Listen, I need to come back to at least some art. The schedule has been, clashing. But I always loved watching you do it, because I just always remember games from like when I was a kid, which is not a direct like correlation to what you're doing.
They've changed a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Mario Brothers. Like that was the extent of
Mario
my
Brothers,
game plan.
though. It's classic for a reason.
Exactly. Listen, if it's not that or Sudoku or Pac-Man, I know nothing. I don't know anything, so I'm no help.
The number of times that I've gotten a text from you that was like, what was that game that you played that was underwater? It's my favorite thing, because I get that text like once a quarter, and I just love it so much, especially because now I've played so many daggone games that are horror games that take place underwater, and I'm like, well, I've played a lot of them by this point. However, the one that you saw was this one.
I'm sorry. Listen, when my husband picks the movies, it always feels like I've seen this before. Like, was this the game
Vaguely
Rachel
familiar.
played? Like, it's like deja vu. And then you say the same thing. Like, I played a lot. Or like, oh, my bad. But what was it? Oh, no, this isn't it.
In all fairness, a lot of horror games take place underwater for a reason, right? Because it's like horror movies and games that take place in space, because we're going into these isolated environments that are already unsettling, because we don't know what's out there and we can't get access to people. So whether we're out in space or underwater, we're in a place that humans aren't designed, like physiologically designed to be. And we are separated from like forms of contact. So it's easy to get people isolated in those kinds of environments. So a lot of them will take place in underwater or outer space, because those are inherently isolated environments. And underwater has a bunch of weird, creepy crap that we don't even know all of what's under there. And so it's very easy to capitalize on the creepy factor.
Listen, I want no parts. However, we take turns in picking. And we were watching this movie. I wish I knew the title. And they were trying to go from the station that they were in that broke down to the station that was there before, that was left unattended, to try to get to the oxygen, of course, because they're trying not to die. And all this stuff was coming out of the dark or coming at them.
No.
And then it just got progressively like, who was overcreating the creatures? So this octopus thingy that just so happened to morph to just like, girl, of course, I'm trying to make sense of it. None of it is meant to make sense, but that keeps me from being scared, so it helps.
Sometimes you gotta put, this is what I do when like movies or stuff are like emotionally overwhelming, is I put on my editor hat and I'm like, okay, let's look at the logic of this so I can stop crying. Like, it's a protection mechanism.
Listen, because I was just like, okay, so not only do we have this creature, we got 5 creatures y'all trying to fight. Listen, they ain't just gonna run. What's the plan? Run. What you gonna do? Run. Listen, if you catch me while I'm running, I gave it a hearty effort. I can't fault you for trying. Bada boom, bada bing. The story is over. So.
At least I don't die from lack of oxygen, I guess.
Girl, listen, obviously I'm not the audience, okay? But we did watch some good ones. We did watch some good ones. So I did at least watch it. So, okay, let me see. What do we have going on over here? Listen, we have been, y'all know that this is all like timing is crazy. But right now, what I'm doing is we have been preparing for, I've been having fun preparing for our visibility challenge in Inner Circle, which has been really interesting. Like today, I just finished the dashboard, the workspace that they will receive to put everything in and
you make a mean
hosting.
Dashboard. Your Notion dashboards rule so hard. I aspire to use Notion like you do. I have the jankest Notion that you've ever seen.
If you see the dashboard I made, I was like, you know what, Dana, this is good. So we're doing that. And then we're also starting the live recordings for the Addictive Romance Blueprint. And so we'll be doing 4 live recordings for that. And it has been insane. So just, I'm like, Dana, do you have enough handouts? Do you? And it's like, no, because each act deserves their shine.
Yeah.
So, just getting a lot of those like last little finishing touches on both of those. It feels good. It feels monstrous. Like I've been working on it for a lifetime.
Yeah. Kind of because you have been. Right? This is the full... Let me just... Hang on. Dear listener, dear viewer, let me just break in here really quick. I have seen Dana's notes for this course. Okay. And it is an insane amount of information. Like, she was walking me through it literally the last time we were talking. And just walking me through, like, her Notion that has, like, all of her notes. And, like, here's the modules and then the sub-modules. And then the... Like, it was so... It really does feel like the full, like, weight of your expertise coming to bear. We have external. We have internal. We have the romance. Like, all of it is together in one place, and how you connect it with the 4-act structure. And Dana already makes a mean handout. Now we've got a handout for every daggone act, because you're right, like every act, right? Like, you don't want any of them to be the weak link in the chain. So they all need their attention so that they each stand up, connect to the others, and add to the story. We don't want any, like, sagging parts in there. And so they do have to have their own kind of, like, intensive treatment. So that's my plug for, like, holy mackerel. This is a monumental task because it is a monumental task, and you kind of have been working on it for a lifetime, because this is all of your experience over the last 20 years coming into, like, this moment of, like, teaching, It's incredible. It really is.
It is. I think one of the things that I kept reminding myself, and I feel like it changes the lens, and this will be the last thing, and I'm sure you guys will hear more over the next couple of episodes, because this is an active thing right now, which is realizing that when you are teaching a program on something like story and you are talking about plotting, it is a different angle just in and of itself when you talk about plotting, because not only is it the fact that you have to understand what goes in that area of the story, but then it's also like, how can you help them if they find that this act is weak? Yep. Or this act needs some more help and they can't figure out what it is. So having things like the cheat sheets and the checklist, at first I was like, okay, do I need both? But my thing is, if you could just pull out that checklist and to be able to go down and like, oh, this is the area where I feel like I'm missing, then you can go back into the program and sort of re-up and sort of get yourself back into the flow of things. And so I just felt like there was the first time where I was really thinking about it in the sense of plotting and how much you really take into consideration when you're plotting a novel.
Yeah.
And I just honestly just take a lot of it for granted, like that it's in there, or at least when I'm off, I know what I'm off by.
Yeah.
And where to go look. And so, so that's where I've been. I feel like I've been in program creating. Rachel texted me one day. I said, I feel like I'm in formatting hell. I was
Man, when you had both you and Mr. Pittman, like, working the thing and it still takes all night, I think that is formatting hell. I don't know.
Listen.
I've never been there.
Listen.
I hope I never have to go, but...
Listen. It seems like no matter how much I start in advance, it is still, the end is like this mad dash.
Yes.
I'm like...
Oh my gosh. As someone who is like an obsessive planner, who's like, I have to have all my ducks in a row. I don't know how, I don't know why, but always right up at the end, you're like, like it's still like, I don't understand it. If anybody has cracked this secret so that it's no matter how far in advance you plan it, but for you, it's no longer a mad dash at the end. Leave something in the comments. I don't know. Help us out because I don't know, man.
Yeah, I've just learned to tell myself, this is where we are. Mm-hmm. I don't look too far ahead.
Yeah.
I don't even think about where I thought I would be. I'm literally just like right in the individual moments, because if I think beyond that, I would cry.
Yes.
Because I just was so sleepy. I was so sleepy. I just was like, if I could just close my eyes for 15 minutes.
Just 5 minutes, please. I will tell you that one, how far you thought you would be, I have had to learn to stop with that, because it's like, I thought I was going to get ahead. I thought I was going to... No, Rachel, no, you're here now. Get it done.
Yes, you are where you are. And there's a lot of things that when you are doing something like this, that just in the moment, it just takes a little more time than you could have. And then others go super fast. Mm-hmm. It's this toss-up. But with that said, that's where I am now. Today, as of the time of this recording, we are making handouts, because a handout is always a good thing. And yes, and I'm talking about printed on paper handout, because we're killing trees. Not for real, y'all. I don't mean to kill trees. However,
I said yes to the handout, not kill the trees. Just make that clear.
No, not really, not like that. But just going through it and allowing myself, as I'm going through this process, to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
To enjoy the process of seeing all the like little isms that I've been thinking about, and how I see the middle moment, and how I see the sort of braid that goes through the story, and how I've written them over the years, and to put that into words was really something. And I'm not quite done with that aspect of it, but so by the end of this week, I should be like printing all of everything, so I can just see it in a binder. And I think that's when I'm going to be like, oh my god. Oh, it's going to be a thumper. Girl, I'm going to set it up to prop my door open.
Heck yeah. That thing is going to deserve a spot on the shelf. You're going to have to clear some stuff on your shelf behind you so it can go on display of like,
It'll go all right there. It'll be
perfect.
That thick.
Move over, Stephanie Meyer. Dana Pittman's got her mega romance binder. I love it.
Slide to the side. So with that said, we are about to get into this conversation about the plot in Sin and Chocolate, which is a crossover pick between Rachel and I. And it's a story that I absolutely love. And I'm looking forward to getting into the plot. So before we do that, let's go ahead and do the summary.
Yes, and I can tell you guys, I'll be way nicer on this story than I was on our last one.
I believe it when I see it.
All right, y'all, I'm on the clock for proving myself of being nicer. So let's start with that summary so I can make my case. Okay, K.F. Breene's Sin and Chocolate is the first book in the Demigods of San Francisco series, an urban fantasy romance that blends gritty survival, found family, and a broody demigod love interest. I said that with so much sass, I'm so sorry.
You did?
It was just like, ooh. The story follows Alexis, a woman scraping by in San Francisco's neutral magical zone while protecting her two wards, Daisy and Mordecai. Her life changes when she crosses paths with Kieran, the sinfully powerful son of a ruthless demigod ruler. And Lexi has a rare power he's been looking for to save his mother. This book delivers slow burn romance, high stakes magic, sharp humor, and deep emotional bonds, all while setting up a series-long couple whose relationship unfolds across 6 books. I've never struggled through a summary like I did through that one, but we made it. There's the summary.
So let's go ahead, and if you could, Rachel, give us just an overview of some of the things that you would like to talk about during this discussion of the plot, and then we will dive in.
Yeah, so one of the first things is that this book almost reads like a magical contemporary romance, while setting up something a little bit more kind of action adventure-y, right, moving in the future books, which is really interesting, and it really actually worked for a book one, I thought. It also really integrated the magic really well with the plot. So, since I work with fantasy writers, I'm always looking at magic, how it works, whether we're in hard or soft magic, and how well the plot let us see the magic versus us, having to get an info dump about it. So those are the two kind of high level ones. And then I do just kind of want to take the opportunity, and this is where we'll cross over. Really, the way that K.F. Breene did a great job of using the magic to also make sure that she is signaling that we are in steamy romance, so that, we're the fantasy aspect, we're like, we know this is where we are, but we also know we're going to get a steamy romance and that it will be steamy, even though that's going to get drawn out over many, many books. So those are kind of my high level things. What about you, Dana?
Well, I will give a real quick summary and then we'll dive in. I want to talk about, I think this is a great book and series. Y'all, well, I'm going to say the books that I've read, because I'm in 3 of the 6 that touches on found families. It is one of my favorite tropes.
Same.
And
I love
and
it so much.
I think it's a masterclass in found families and in the stakes that affect them all. Also, I want to talk about Lexi's hidden powers, and that this is done right. Now, I don't work with all fantasy. I find that I have clients that sort of are like a hybrid, like people that would be either in romantasy or paranormal romance or fantasy, romantic fantasy. I'm going to say it like that instead of merging them. So if I find that this aspect of doing having hidden powers and how you reveal them and how they evolve over the book and then over the series can be sticky. It can be tricky because they can just have the power. Well, we'll talk about it more. The point is, I love it. And we'll talk about it more in a second. The other thing that I want to talk about, which is something that Rachel touched on a few books ago, where she asked about, okay, describe an alpha hero. Ma'am, front and center, delivered. Okay, mic drop. Kyrian did not come to play. So I wanted to talk a little bit about his layers and how those layers in him and how we see him and how it affects the plot, but then also how we'll talk about a little bit more in characters, because it really does drive a lot of how he shows up and how this story moves forward, and even the nature of their relationship, of course. The final thing that I have, well, I guess I'll merge them, which is slow burn. This is a slow burn, even though it is steamy. And also the world building. And I think that's going to cross over with a couple of things that you wanted to talk about in 2 of those areas, but the world building that serves the romance as well. And I just think K.F. Breene just crushed this book on that and so many other levels. So those are some of the key things that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and just get into the first one. I think they will kind of blend together, not just me wanting to talk about how this was a masterclass in found family. And just in case you don't know, I guess I really should have wrote down a definition, but a found family is exactly like it sounds, of like a group of people that have made each other their family, right? They're intentional, and it's almost like being in a committed relationship, right? They're committed to each other in this family unit. And we see it here with Alexis. Her name is Alexis, and they call her Lexi, but Lexi's bond with her wards, Mordecai and Daisy. We also, this sort of theme carries on through the other books that I've read. And what I love is not just that K.F. Breene says, okay, we're going to do the found family trope. She sort of allows it to sort of like escalate the way that the story would escalate. Yeah. So we see it in this little tight-knit group with her, and basically she's just carrying on the thing that her mother did, right? And then we begin to see it grow, and it tells us a lot about Lexi and her sort of dynamic for family, but it also starts to inform the nature of their relationship, because they're in these trying times for both of them, and but yet and still they've chosen to be very committed and very present for these people. And it's not just about the found family, but it's also about the layers that makes us lean in, and it makes them relatable, and it also makes them sort of have that sort of universal fantasy aspect that we want friends like that. We want people to show up for us like that. And so it's folded into how she's developing and building the story and why they're committed to the journey that they're on. But it's also really foundational and sort of cornerstones for both of them because of how they were raised. And her on the positive side because she got it from her mother, and him on the negative side because he didn't have that, and now he's recreating that. And then they begin to create that dynamic together. And so it just makes it so there's this element that people can just think is a trope and a sideline that is almost front and center, but in the most subtle yet fundamental way.
The honestly, we almost don't have a book one without the found family, right? Because this book really centers on Lexi trying to survive, specifically to take care of her wards, right? So much of what happens in the story does not exist without Lexi trying to protect Daisy and Mordecai and trying to provide for them and take care of them. So it's that thing, right, where we talk about all of your plot threads should be like stuck in together so that if you lift one out, the story unravels. And this is absolutely true of the found family, because if we were to take out Daisy and Mordecai, we could have Lexi just sort of like struggling to get by, but so many of the decisions she makes or has to make don't exist without the dynamic of Daisy and Mordecai and their lives literally depending on her, right? And so So first we have that, like, it sets up the story, and it gives Lexi, this is not the best way to say it, but it gives her something to do in the story between her meetings with Kieran, right? Like, especially because we're setting up for we're setting up for a series, and this is book one. Kieran, we meet him throughout the story in like there's like way stations of meeting him and that development, because the book needs room to grow. That relationship is going to have to grow over multiple books. And so if we don't have that central story, Lexi has nothing sort of like relevant to do, because then it's like we're just like using scenes and waiting until we meet Kieran again, and then until we meet Karen again, right? And there's nothing happening. And so it gives her it acts as the through line really for this first book, because everything again that she does and the way that like her relationship and sort of arrangements with Kieran develop is predicated on what she can do to protect her wards. And I think that just worked so well to give this, to give a book one something meaningful to do in the story.
And it really does. I think that this is, we don't want to say like throw a kid at every situation, but it does make people feel relatable if you really think about who your core reading audience is for romance. And it also makes it so that it gives her stakes, and it also gives conflict. So we get both sides of it for this particular found family.
Yeah.
And the fact that it will expand beyond the three of them makes it even better. And I think this kind of piggybacks on one of the things that you wanted to talk about, which is sort of the fact that this is like a magical contemporary romance. And I would say absolutely, right? And the fact that we have this romance, except for the setting is in this magical, it's a neutral zone, right? The fact that Lexi has this power that she's aware of, but she doesn't realize the full extent of it. And the fact that he is a demigod, right? So we have, but when you strip those things, it really is about Lexi and Kyrian sort of doing this like dance around each other. And the fact that even though it's a magical setting, it's set like it's contemporary, right? As if I always like to call it speculative fiction, and I know people don't normally say that now, and almost like, if we, some people have magical abilities and we just didn't know about it, sort of vibe. But yeah. So, but tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on it being a magical contemporary romance.
Yeah, so the what's so interesting, and again, this is really a testament to K.F. Breene kind of threading that needle, is because this book, Lexi's goals of taking care of her wards reminded me a lot of Lucy Score's Things We Never Got Over, right? Naomi has to take care of Waylay, and that is driving so much of the action of what she's doing and what she has to do and the kinds of conflicts she's running into, which is also then bringing her into contact with Nox. Now, that's Things We Never Got Over. In Sin and Chocolate, it has this contemporary romance feel because it's very... it's slice of life with a twist, right? Because it's caring for her wards. And so that's very much, I have to work a job. I have to find ways to problem solve to provide for my, for my wards who are my, basically my kids. And so we get that sort of everyday life mixed with magic. Because why she needs to take care of Mordecai is a magical reason. But then she does this because, again, this isn't going to be... Like, this isn't Knock 'em Out. This is Demigods of San Francisco with life and death stakes. With, this is moving in an action direction. And so she sets us up with life and death stakes in in very subtle ways until we get later into the book when it's like, oh, I'm actually in danger, really in danger. Okay, cool. But we have to escalate to that point. We have to get there because, again, we're spreading this out over multiple books. And so some of the ways that she does that, right, is taking care of her ward. So first of all, the reason that she has to take care of him has a magical reason. If she fails, he will die. Life and death stakes. And then we're dealing with demigods. We're dealing with powerful, demigods / their sons. His son, one demigod with his one son. And this is slowly weaving us toward, okay, she's trying to survive right now. So she's trying to solve some immediate problems. But then her solutions to these immediate problems are starting to move her toward these bigger problems that have bigger stakes so that we can actually kind of resolve some of those immediate problems by the end, because we're going to be focusing on those bigger problems in following books. And so she does a really nice job of giving us that through line of take care of the wards, need to survive today, into what I chose to do to survive today is now meaning that I'm risking death tomorrow and then in future books, which is really, really cleverly done. And so that's a great way, if you're looking at a multi-book series like this, of introducing, if you're kind of starting on that almost lower stakes, but you need to move toward life and death stakes, it's a great way of seeding that in. So this book is a great thing to learn from if you're looking to seed that in to set us up for it's going to get even more dangerous, it's going to get even more intense, but we're not there yet in this book.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that and maybe this is something we consider more in the future, is really looking at when you are continuing this conversation across the rest of the series, right? Yeah. Because I believe this is such a great book one, because essentially it's act one.
Yeah.
Boy meets girl, and then how they end up getting stuck together.
Yep.
Right? To move forward into act two, except for we could in however many words, because I don't know how many is. I would guess it's probably 90,000 maybe words, maybe more. I think so.
The book, I think, was only 9 or 10 hours.
So
10 hours.
So it really is a great act one, right? Of status quo, how I always call this that they are living their comfortable in their uncomfortable situation, and they are doing everything that they can to within the extent of their current abilities to be able to find solutions to their problems, right? Before they kind of bump into. And with that said, kind of get into what we both have for number 2, because I have actually have a question for you, but for mine, I wanted to talk about how Lexi's power is done right. Listen, she isn't okay. I think it's common, and this will be good for you to speak into, because I do fantasy, but it's like I still think it's different than traditional fantasy, right?
Generally,
so.
yeah. Can I offer like a quick, the way I think about it is like, right, you do romantic fantasy, and that name is important. It's romance first, fantasy second, versus this is straight fantasy. And so what the readers are literally expecting out of the story is different. So I think that's like, they're similar. They have so much overlap, and they play by a lot of the same rules, but what readers are looking for is different. And so I think there is a distinction between the two. They're both great, and they're both great ways of consuming fantasy, but what readers are looking for is different.
Exactly. So here, Lexi isn't just special because of secret magic. She's compelling before her power is revealed. And we already sort of like her, and we see there's something different about her from the jump. First of all, when I first read this book, I was reading the first chapter, and I kept going back to the cover like, did I start reading the right story? Because I was reading in my Kindle, and I have a million books. I thought I tapped the wrong book. Why is she in this story that sounds like a Ross or, or Burlington Coat Factory, and she is hugging a Burberry, like, that's
another one of those like crazy, like, this feels like a contemporary romance signal. Cause I was like, wait, we're starting at a discount. We're looking at discount purses. What is happening?
Listen. And I just thought, Dana, you clicked the wrong book. I thought it was me. Okay. So here, I love the way that she's done this, because a lot of the fundamental aspects of Lexi are the same for most heroines in romance, right? That they are usually some sort of orphan, and if not, in this case, her mother has passed away a few years ago. They usually have, some don't know their ability. Some don't know the full extent of their ability. She fell on that spectrum. But it's not for a reason or fault of her own. Also the fact that, of course, across the story, that they are going to learn more about their powers. They may train more in their powers, etc. And we see that with Lexi. But the reason why I love this so much is because it's sort of like a textbook case of what it looks like to do it right, and to sort of like seed it out, and how it's totally ingrained, woven into the story in such a way that you're getting that aspect of her growing without it being like, now let's train your magic, like, and there are some moments that will come like that, but it's not in this like cheesy, let's get this done check way, but where it's really like folded in. And the beginnings of it, we see it not just from a sense of, well, let me back up. I absolutely love the way she used his point of view to help us to get a sense of what Lexi didn't know.
Yeah.
And because we knew that, it made the fact that she's just trying to make her way. She's just a woman trying to find a way to pay the bills and feed her babies. That's it.
Yeah.
If I could find a way to pay my bills and feed my babies with my beat up Toyota, it's all good in the hood. Listen, she's making magical meals, not because it's magic, but because some of the food might be old and some of the food might be new. Like, she's just trying to get by. And so when you fold in the fact that he sees this thing in her, and she has no clue, it just makes it so that we are glued and we are invested all the while she's still kicking and screaming and or falling for him, and her words are like, listen, chick, pump your brakes. Like, we get all of that. And so I found that the way that it's done here, you can really use this again as a textbook study, just like with the found family, of how you can allow the readers to be in on the progression and the journey of her learning her magic and growing in her magic. And I think in a lot of ways, as she moves forward, it's not even fully that she's growing, but she's beginning to realize that what she thought was normal is not. and be able to put words to things that she just did.
Yeah.
Because no one ever trained her.
Yeah.
And so we come along for that journey too. So we're learning as she's learning with her nice, like, it's almost a great like mixture of us reading Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum, and a mixture of Dead Until Dark, Sookie Stackhouse, but with still the slow burn. I still feel like we feel a bit more of the intensity of their heat and their chemistry than those other two stories.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a really great combination. Again, why it's a great crossover pick for us. Now, you wanted to talk a little bit about like the integration of that magic. And I'd love to hear about that. And I'd also love to hear you talk just a little bit, if you will, about like the hard and the soft, because you've said that before. And we've talked about that in private, especially like around me reading Mistborn. And and so if you could talk a little bit about that, I think that will also be helpful in this conversation.
Yeah. So I'll try to give just like a brief summary of that. So I really learned about the distinction between like the formalized distinction between hard and soft magic from Brandon Sanderson's creative writing course, which you can get on YouTube for free, like the whole entire lecture series. He just updated it for 2025, which is really awesome. But I learned about it from listening to his lectures years ago, the like original run of them. And it's basically the hard and soft magics. So it's a spectrum, right? Of like how concrete are the rules for this particular magic system? So a soft magic system is going to be very mysterious. You're going to have a lot of room for leeway, which means it gets to stay kind of wondrous. Like think about Harry Potter, right? Where it's like you never know what's going to happen because you kind of, there's room for anything, which means that you have to be really careful about your cause and effect so that you don't get like Deus Ex Machina stuff where it's like, and then because magic, the hero is saved, right? And then you're just like, well, that feels like cheating. So soft magic systems can be really wondrous, and they can give you loads of flexibility for all kinds of cool stuff. I think Shadow and Bone, also that series, would fall closer on the softer side of the spectrum. Ninth House is like this as well, where we don't have any clearly defined rules. We only learn them through cause and effect. And so that's why you have to be really careful with those magic systems, that you clearly establish like precedent in your magic so that you don't wind up with that Deus Ex Machina at the end or at some important moment, because it's going to undermine your stakes and it's going to undermine the reader's investment. So that's soft magic. Hard magic systems are going to be your magic systems that have concrete, established, like unbreakable rules and principles. Like, so, Mistborn is a hard magic system. And Brandon Sanderson talks about, he based it on how vector physics works, right? So like, this is a very, like, we understand in the books, or we come to understand throughout the books, exactly how the magic works. So we understand what the rules are, what you can do and what you can't do. And then the trick then is to find out how to sort of like bend inside of those rules and get creative inside of basically the constraints that you've placed upon yourself to deliver on exciting moments and still have surprises for the reader in the magic. And so it's really about how concrete the rules are, and how much of those like rules are sort of concretely established for the reader. So the Will of the Many, I think, falls also more on that hard magic spectrum, because it's based essentially on mathematics. So that's kind of where that spectrum is. So a lot of times your romantic fantasy is going to be way on the soft side, because we're not looking to establish hardline rules. We're looking to create a magical world, like a world that feels magical. And again, the focus is like, it's romance first and fantasy second. So the fantasy kind of just, it lifts the romance, or like adds magic, like literal and sort of metaphorical magic to the romance. I know, if you're not watching on YouTube, it's just, I'm making little fireworks hands because I'm like, don't know how else to describe it. How to describe it, so it needs hand gestures. So in this case, and this is true for all fantasy, right, is basically you want your magic to slot in with the plot, right? So you don't want just like, this is the magic, and then the plot is like not at all related, right? You don't want, again, you want all of your threads to be connected. And you want to show the magic to the reader through the plot, because that's how it becomes relevant to the reader, is inside of the plot and watching it happen. And that's how you get away, that's how you avoid, it's not a guarantee, but that's how you can start to avoid stuff like info dumps, because now the plot is giving us a reason to see the magic unfolding. And so it's investing us, because now we're like, oh, this is what it does, and this is why it matters, right? And she does this really well, because the magic in the world in this story is what's driving our problems and solutions, right? Mm-hmm. So Mordecai has a magical disease. So this is why Lexi has to work to get him medicine. So now we understand how this aspect works. Lexi has a gift that she doesn't really like to use and that she doesn't fully understand, but in a desperate attempt to get money, we watch her use it in the story, and it shows us both what she can do and why she doesn't like to do it, right? So we get that actually demonstrated to us, plot relevant. She is in a desperate bid to make some more money, she is on tight times, and so she goes and sort of subjects herself to what feels like an indignity of kind of using her magic. And this also gives us the opportunity, like this split between the worlds is also part of our problems and solutions, right? So we have two separate worlds, magical and non-magical, and then there's this sort of like crack where people can fall in between, and that's where Lexi is, again, because of her wards, right? So it's all connecting back to her wards, connecting back to her efforts to provide for them and to protect her, like to get medicine for Mordecai, who's sick. And she's using the resources at her disposal, like being in that sort of like neutral zone, in order to find solutions for the problem. So it's both problem and solution. And so all of that is so integrated into the plot of the story itself. It makes the magic feel meaningful, and we come to understand it through experience, and it doesn't just feel like it's like tacked on as like set dressing.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I feel like we could have just a whole episode on just that. I love the way you explained that. I think this will be a great time to also talk just a little bit about, also your point of using, the clever use of magic with steam. This is a steamy romance. It is a slow romance, a slow burn romance. There will be on the page intimacy, so for anyone reading it, but I really feel like, listen, Breene did it like I'm a lady, you know what I'm saying? She's just like, I'm a lady. So there's slow burn, and their chemistry is immediate, and it's one of the best ways to I think it's one of the best ways, and also one of the hardest ways, to get both your protagonists on the same page as soon as possible. And we do. And so it's not just about their magic that sort of connects to them, even though she doesn't realize that's what it is. And he has a better understanding because he's more learned and more experienced. But they're drawn to each other from the beginning. And so this is that slow burn. And we see that a lot of it in this story is played out in banter and just romance yumminess. I don't even have to say. Yes, we're gonna say that's a technical term. And we see it like evolve and mature, and how it is also navigated as they become better acquainted with each other and more aware of who they are and what they represent, for lack of a better saying. Like, yeah. She doesn't know who he is. She does not know who she's dealing with, which makes all of the beginning absolutely hilarious. Yeah. And also the reality is, like, he is constantly sort of like surprised by her, or surprised / in awe of her. Yeah. And it makes, in all of his alpha yumminess and goodness, him to want to do, and which makes it harder for her, right? I'm like, oh no, like he's stalker, Yeah. And Daisy's like, oh no, Lexi, you need to give that stuff back, And so all this to say, it is very much a romance. It is a slow burn. It's attraction from the beginning, and you get to see it materialize at a pace that makes you fall for both of them, and you are rooting for them. You are rooting for them in some ways you don't fully know why yet.
Yeah.
Other than you know that there's something here. And as the time goes on and he opens up and she opens up, you begin to see more and more like, oh, this is why. And so I'd love for you to talk about the intersection of that magic with the steam for this story.
Yeah, and this kind of also dovetails into like sort of your point about the world building and how it serves the romance, right? Because I think that what's cool is that the magic and his like, because he does understand how the magic works better than she does, which is why it's so helpful then that sometimes we're in his point of view, not nearly as often, but we do drop into his point of view every now and or we swap out into his point of view every now and again. And it allows us to see what he's seeing that she's not seeing. So it gives us a little bit of that dramatic irony for when we're in her point of view. And it instigates this curiosity in him that I think initiates sort of this cat and mouse game, right? Where he is constantly, and I think that's part of creating some of that romantic tension is like, there's one scene in particular where it really drives home that like, this is Lexi is a little bit of a game to him, but like it's sort of like a sexy game, right? But it's like, because he is like chasing her, but she is like, oh my God, like a predator, but it's not, it isn't, right? Like it's more of this kind of, again, it's, I can't say Tom and Jerry because Tom's trying to eat Jerry. So this like, it's not Tom and Jerry.
Oh my God.
Tom is the cat, right? Jerry's the mouse. Okay, I want to make sure it's not just like all backwards, right? But again, it's like her magic drives that is like part of what drives the curiosity, which instigates that chase, and it's also going to set them on that collision course. But the thing that I wanted to highlight that I just was like, it surprised me so genuinely, I wasn't expecting it, is like, because of the way that Kieran's magic works, because he has, his mom and his dad, he's kind of gotten magic from both of them, that one of the magics comes from like his mom, who's a sensual kind of creature. Like it's just part of the sort of inherent magic to her. Well, he's gotten some of that. And so that he I don't know if he uses it on purpose or not on Lexi most of the time, but that magic will sort of like roll off of him and create these really sort of sensual scenarios, but purely like almost like it's a physical sensation. And so when they run into each other, not just because he's super hot, but then he has this magic rolling off of him that basically allows KF Breene to bring in that steamy language and to bring in that sort of physical sensation and essentially the promise of romance or of like intimacy on the page, which you need, right? When you're advertising that this is a romance, you gotta let the people know it's coming. It's going to take a while, but it is on its way. So just sit tight because I will deliver on it. And that's one of the ways that you do that is through the language and through like the scenarios. And so using the magic itself as the scenario by which you are communicating to people like, don't worry, it's going to get hot. It was so clever. Like I was listening to it and I was like, daggone it, she went there. She did that. I wouldn't have guessed it. I wouldn't have thought to do it. And she daggone did it. And I just thought that was an amazing way to set up the promises that we're in for while always keeping it right there in the plot connected to what this particular story was about. It was really well done.
Yeah, with that too, first of all, yes, and all the yeses. There's a couple things about that too. Number one, I feel like this is a very tight story. Like she is communicating a lot. Like it could have been stretched out. It is very tight, but I think it's also because of the format of the story structure. So there's that. The other thing that I absolutely love in what you're saying now and also in how the story is told is how she sort of addresses the power dynamic, right? That difference between Lexi and Kieran, it's a huge difference. The fact that in the beginning she doesn't even know, because if she would have known, half of what she would have said,
she would have done a lot of things different.
She would have tried. She may have been a little, because she would have been clumsy about it and probably said it anyway just because she couldn't help herself. But she would have approached this differently. And I think that was also one of those indicators where it's sort of like all of these little, I would say all of these little nods to give Kyrian permission to be Kyrian and to not be the son of a demigod.
Yeah.
And that's at the heart of his journey, right? It's at the heart of his journey of like, who am I? This mix between the love that he got from his mother and then this just awkward, tense relationship with his father that is always experienced for us off the page. And I'm really looking forward to like when it's on the page, you see some of it in 2, but so we see that, but it is also that part. So it's always this nod. And then there's this nod from him that is sort of like encouraging and pressing Lexi into being this other version of herself. One, because it kind of can seem opportunistic because it could help him. Right. But the other real reason is because it's almost like he's curious to see what would she really do.
Yeah.
If she knew.
Yeah.
And we want to know the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's setting up this stage so that she can get this full play of like, here I am, and to be in her fullness and not to hide or shrink the way that she's lived her entire life.
Yeah.
And so it just makes for a very good, great, amazing, steamy dynamic. The final thing that I have, and I think we sort of touched on it already, which is the world building that serves the romance. This is a magical San Francisco setting, and there's this hierarchy of zones and class levels and demigods and it's sort of like in our face from the beginning, but we don't get the full scope. But she does such a good job of like laying down the track for all of these little, like, if you want to call them micro threads, I don't know what we would call them, that again, I think this is what allows her to go for 6 books.
Yeah. Right?
Because the classism, the economics, the fact that there's the chesters and demigods, and there's shifters, and there's her ability, and not only that, like the fact that there's classism not just in money but in the hierarchy of powers, and how you're ranked, and all of these things that makes us so fascinated, because when we bump into them, it's contextual, so we have to, but now we want to know, well, what else is there?
Yeah, she's creating all these opportunities to pull on in later books, right? Because we do kind of knock into them. Again, story relevant, all of them. We just kind of bump into them left and right. And then in future, now, because I haven't read the other books, but I can see that she's got all these threads to choose from when she is ready to pull those things in and like really let us see them even more.
Exactly. And then in the beginning, again, like a really great book 1 of setting the context of her world and sort of like Kyrian bumping into her world, right? And then later, we see Balance, which is his father, that's sort of having this almost omnipresent, like always sort of this threat. And then we see the 6, which you sort of get a sneak peek into, which are sort of like his people who have, agreed to protect him at all costs, like with their lives. And it becomes this dynamic of where I'm into this world, I'm into this situation and this scenario. And then by the time you add Lexi and Kyrian on top, it's just like, listen, it's so good. Okay. So with that said, I think we have covered all of the topics that we wanted to talk about. I will say, as you think of see if there's any more, I will say in general, if we have not said this, you should read this book. I've already told you guys that I absolutely love this book. I liked it from the beginning. I was on this quest of reading some romanticy books and just reading some of the ones that I felt like were really cornerstone into creating the sort of niche that we didn't have. This even a couple of years ago. I mean, you had this dynamic in books like this book, because this book is an older book.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was one of the ones that you could begin to credit for having this sort of hybrid, if you will, while still having a very, very present, again, romanticy is romantic first, romantic fantasy is romance first. So having a very present in a strong and dynamic romantic component.
Yeah.
And while this one, I feel like gives us time to sit back and luxuriate in those layers, they are very clear, and she does it well. And so you will laugh, you will lean in, you know by the end of this that this is going to be action packed, right? That there's not just the romance, there's mystery. Like she just weaves it all in. And listen, y'all, we are here for all of it. Was there anything else that you wanted to add when it comes to the plot?
No, I think I'm really excited to read, future books. And I'm also, we'll talk about this probably more in depth in the takeaways. But I'm really excited to have a little bit of conversation about like pulling off a romance that goes for 6 books with the same couple. Because that is, again, this book, right? Like, it signaled that like, it's gonna get hot. So like, get ready. But doesn't deliver on all of it because it can't, because it needs somewhere to go, and she managed to deliver on the steamy elements while still giving herself, like giving the story somewhere to go moving forward for another 5 whole books. And I think that's not really that easy to do, and so I think that's a conversation that we should maybe dig down into a little bit more when we get to the takeaways this week or next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this, for someone who is wanting to write something like this, I think, listen, could someone do this and not be a plotter? Absolutely. But I think the reason why she could go for 6 books is that you have to do quite a bit of groundwork. And for a book that is the beginning of 6, listen, hats off.
Yeah.
As I tell my clients, we did not come to play. Okay, she did not come to play, and you really have to understand. And this is why you need those threads. This is why you need, if you will, those other subplots. Because right now, I like to call them like whispers. Like it's whisper of something, right? Something like, that's interesting. I wonder if she's gonna play with that some more. And then you start seeing that other books dive into it, pick up where it left off and explore it more. And you're always wanting to progress the relationship. You are always wanting to up the stakes in the conflict. And you're always wanting to make sure that each one of those books are some sort of evolution in how that character sees themselves. Right? Yeah. And I think that is how you do it. So to be able to pull back and look at the overarching book, and then to be able to drop down in that individual book and say, this is what book 1 represents to the series. And now, which I love to do, I love to sort of lay the groundwork for a series and then drop down in the individual book because I know it works with the rest. And then you can really focus on how can I make the most of this to set me up so where the rest of it is like stealing candy from a baby. Yeah. Right? Y'all don't be out there stealing no candy from no babies, but if you had to do it like this. Like, alrighty. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we call this episode done and finished?
No, we covered everything. I think our notes overlapped so seamlessly that it made for a nice tight episode. So I'm feeling good.
Awesome sauce. So with that said, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you have not done so already, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, push whatever button is around you, wherever you're finding us, whether it is in a podcast or whether you're watching us on YouTube. And don't forget to add if there's any questions or if there's any aspects of this that we did not cover that you would love to hear our take on, go ahead and let us know, because we always love gathering those questions and sharing them in our bonus episodes that we have throughout the year. You can visit us online at storydeepdive.com, and we will be back for the next episode where we'll be talking about these characters. Listen, y'all, we can't get into all the nitty gritty, but we will give it our a good hearty try in the amount of time that we have. And if we haven't done so already, y'all, we done gave you plenty of reasons of why you need to go ahead and get this book. As always, this is one of the books that we have selected that you can find in both ebook, physical book, audio book. So you have time to read it before we get to characters if you are watching this episode or listening to this episode right now. With that said, we are out. Take care. And as always, happy writing. Goodbye.